Welcome to the Weather Insights Podcast. I'm meteorologist Scott Pitney along with meteorologist Jeff Lindner. And we have a slight shift in the track east with Beryl. But again, the where the center goes is not, it's important, but we need to pay attention to the impacts outside of the center, outside of the cone. So the latest from the National Hurricane Center is we have a hurricane warning that's now been extended to San Luis Pass, from San Luis Pass down to Baffin Bay. We have a storm surge warning in effect from High Island down to Baffin Bay. And then we have a tropical storm warning now in effect for many counties, including Harris County and surrounding counties mainly to the southwest of there. We also have a flash flood watch for most of Southeast Texas, excluding the areas east of Houston, but that could be expanded. And Jeff, there's a lot going on with this map here. If we look at the track, as I said, the track is well, it can be fairly significant for where the eye comes in for those folks, but mainly we've got to start looking at impacts now from Beryl, which of course go outside the cone. So what are you seeing this morning?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at the radius here of the tropical storm force winds in the orange, and you can see that they extend beyond the cone. And if you just kind of draw this up along this pathway here, you can see that we are going to see tropical storm force winds outside of the cone. We are going to have impacts outside of the cone, and the cone does not represent impacts. It represents where the center can move inland. And one of the things I'm going to go back to this map real quick is notice we are now extending the impacts inland, and there
Yeah.
may be some additional requirements to extend this a little bit further inland. A couple things happening. One, we're still expecting some fairly significant strengthening of this as it comes up to the coast, really in the last 12 hours as it approaches the coast. So, still holding at a category 185. It would not surprise me if this was a little bit stronger than that. And then the second thing is the forward speed is going to be starting to increase and accelerating off to the northeast. And so that is going to help draw some of these stronger winds further inland. And so even up towards the I-10 corridor, maybe as far north as the Highway 105 corridor, especially west of I-45, you could see tropical storm force winds, especially in gust. And some of these winds, getting up into Fort Bend County, Wharton County, areas here southwest of Houston, inland Brazoria County, will be, even in Harris County now, will be strong enough to cause some power outages. And so you need to be making those preparations today. Loose outdoor objects, trampolines need to be secured, garbage cans need to be brought in. All that stuff needs to happen today. And we need that completed by sundown tonight, because this is really starting to shape up as potentially, stronger winds and some of these other impacts. We're still going to have tides and rain, but the wind may be the primary concern here going forward. So this is the infrared this morning. Again, we've seen this deep blow up of thunderstorms near and over the center. We'll see if this is able to persist. It is within range of the Brownsville radar. And so we are starting to see some banding here on the western side too. Not completely choking out this dry air, so that you can see this dry air is sort of still wrapping in, but it's looking a little bit better. There's probably a little bit of shear still impinging here from the south, but as this kind of turns to the north northwest and north today, conditions get really favorable here over the extreme northwestern Gulf Coast. And it's this last little bit, this last 150 miles or so over the water where things could really ramp up and strengthen. And, now we're looking at a landfall here, eastern Matagorda Bay, Matagorda, maybe as far over as Sargent. And again, all of this eastern side of this is going to come into Brazoria County, Matagorda County, Galveston County, and then extend on up into Fort Bend, Wharton, and Harris County. So really going to have to watch this afternoon as this comes up toward the coast this afternoon tonight, to see exactly how much strengthening we get, and if we need to change those wind forecasts that we have out there currently for any of the locations.
Yeah, and like you said, the distance about 150 miles. That's a relatively short fetch, but when you talk about that kind of distance in the current forward speed, you're talking another potentially 12 to 15 hours that could be over water, and that's a lot of time that if the conditions are favorable for a hurricane to strengthen.
Yeah, they're definitely there. We'll just have to see once that inner core kind of forms. There's not going to be a whole lot to stop the intensification, and we've seen before how quickly things can change here, intensify in the northwestern Gulf. This is the wind impacts. This is a really good graphic from the National Weather Service. So everything you see here in red, this would be Matagorda Bay here. So this would be Jackson County, Matagorda County, southwestern Brazoria County. This would be the Brazos River right here. Everything you see in red here is hurricane force winds. So we're talking sustained winds of 74, possibly up to 100 miles an hour, even down here in these areas. So almost all of Matagorda County, portions of Brazoria County, certainly the barrier islands here, portions of Calhoun County, maybe even up towards the Surfside, west end of Galveston Island area. And then in this orange color, this is the sustained winds of 58 to 73 miles per hour. And I don't know if we're going to get sustained winds of that in all of these areas, especially further to the north, but certainly gusts up to 60 and 70 miles per hour will be possible in this orange area. And so really focusing in on this from, say, the eastern end of Galveston Island, right along the I-45 corridor, and then kind of out to 90. And this does get north of I-10. So Northwest Harris, Western Harris, all of Fort Bend, all of Wharton County, Austin County, getting back into Colorado County. This is wind speeds that will be strong enough to cause trees and tree limbs to come down, down power lines, power outages. So this is going to be a rough go of it as we get into Monday here, and this may have to be extended a little bit northward. If you're in the Woodlands or up towards Conroe, over towards Brenham, maybe even up towards College Station, it wouldn't surprise me if you get some 40, 50 mile an hour winds, even up in these areas up here. Again, as this comes in, it's going to be accelerating some. So this is going to pull those stronger winds further inland.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things to keep in mind is how long the winds are sustained, because even in Houston Metro, there you see 58 to 73 miles per hour. Those are severe thunderstorm type winds, like we recently had that derecho, and everybody knows that, was in the path of that derecho, some of the large limbs that storm brought down. And so you definitely do not want to be outside when this is going on. These wind gusts can come up suddenly and bring down those large tree limbs. And there's also a threat of tornadoes too, being on this side of the hurricane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is the wind timing. So this has not really changed a whole lot. We still anticipate the arrival of the sustained tropical storm force winds 40 miles per hour along the coast this evening. So all preparations that are going to be made need to be done by this evening. Getting up around the I-10 corridor after midnight, around two or 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, Monday morning, and then further north around sunrise tomorrow morning. So all preparations for the landfall of this hurricane, a tropical storm hurricane, need to be completed by this evening. You're not going to have time in the morning to do anything. We're going to be into this, overnight tonight and into Monday, and then this is going to move on out pretty quickly. That's a little bit better news today,
Yeah.
is that it hits and it moves on through, and by tomorrow, Monday, late afternoon, evening, most of these impacts are probably going to be over with. The other concern is the coastal flooding, the tides. So you can see here, we haven't had a lot of change with this. The 4 to 6 foot above ground level, normally dry ground near the coast, has been extended up to San Luis Pass. 3 to 5 feet now in Galveston Bay and on Galveston Island. I don't really think we're going to see a lot of this down here on the lower coast, with the track kind of coming up like this. Now you're going to have kind of offshore winds here, so you're going to have above normal tides down here, but I just don't think we're going to see 3 to 5 feet at Corpus or Corpus Christi Bay or Rockport or Port Aransas or any of these areas. So I think the worst of the conditions are going to be where the center comes in and over to the east. So from eastern Matagorda Bay, Palacios, Matagorda, Sargent, up towards Freeport, Surfside, San Luis Pass, Treasure Island. All of these areas that were flooded a couple weeks ago with Alberto will be flooded again. And now we're looking at tides probably a little bit higher than Alberto, maybe 1 to 2 feet higher than Alberto. This is still not big storm surge flooding, but there will be impacts. There will be roads closed, Blue Water Highway, Highway 87 over on Bolivar, portions of the backside of Galveston Island that typically have flooding around Seabrook, Toddville Road. Some of those areas all are going Surfside, and then down towards Sargent. All those areas are going to experience flooding. The good news, unlike Alberto, the tides are going to come up this evening. They're going to peak on Monday, and then they're going to go back down. And so we're not expecting multiple days of high water levels like we saw in June. This will be quick, but it is going to be higher. And on top of those tides, we are going to have some big waves coming into the Gulf beaches. So overtopping or breaching of the dune system or eroding of the dune system is certainly possible and likely here, Matagorda, Brazoria, Galveston County. So pay attention down here on the coast. If you're in those low-lying areas, you need to make sure your vehicles are up. Follow the recommendations from local officials. I know we have some voluntary evacuation recommendations in place this morning. Listen to those, and be prepared for that water to come up tonight and stay up tomorrow down there.
And speaking of water, the rain graphic looks pretty much the same, maybe a slight shift to the east there is what I'm seeing, Jeff. But as far as the rain amounts, those are pretty much the same, 4 to 6 inches. And as we know, in tropical storms, we could have isolated amounts higher than that, possibly 10 to 12 inches if there's any training offense. But the good news of what you mentioned earlier is that the storm is forecast to track a little bit faster now as soon as it makes landfall. So that's good news in terms of rainfall.
Yeah, I think we're looking a little bit better on the rainfall side of things. I don't want to drop our guard a whole lot because especially along this I-45 corridor, if the center comes up like this eastern flank is potentially where we're going to have some of the heaviest rains. And so that definitely puts the urban areas in play here for some of the heaviest rains. But we've kind of pulled back a little bit on some of these totals. And that's the increasing forward speed. So, for a tropical system making landfall, 48 inches of rain is not that big of a deal with respect to what tropical systems can produce. I wouldn't discount some isolated higher totals. Could we see 10, 12 inches somewhere? We could, especially if we get some banding. But again, this kind of starts late tonight, goes through Monday. And then as the center gets up here to the northeast of us, we could still see some bands come down and pulling off the Gulf of Mexico Monday night and Tuesday. So we'll have to watch that very closely. But just to kind of reemphasize here, the rainfall is going to happen. The storm surge is going to happen. I think the wind impact potentially here with this and the potential for power outages is the thing we really need to be focused on and paying attention and preparing for. Charging your cell phone, making sure you have batteries, making sure you have flashlights, generators, if you have those ready, gassed up. Don't put generators closer inside the house. Those need to remain outside. That is the focus here, probably going for the next 24 hours is going to be some really strong winds across the area.
Jeff, thank you very much. And we'll have another update this afternoon, Sunday afternoon on Beryl. You can subscribe and share our podcast by going to the Weather Insights YouTube channel. Just click on the subscribe button. And please consider sharing it with friends and family so they can keep up on the latest with Beryl as well. And until the next podcast, we will see you then. Be safe.